Wilson Sports Arena, Fox Sports Radio. And, of course, I had to bring from NBC Sports Radio, 1060 The Hangover out there in Arizona, Mr. Michael Caratanudo, and our girl, Ruth the Truth, joining me today. What's going on, y'all? How's everybody doing?
Great. Good to be here.
What's up, Mike?
Oh, wonderful. It's another day closer to the Cowboys beating the Eagles. Can't wait.
Oh, he went there.
Schedule's not even out yet. Can we wait and at least see what the schedule's going to be like before you
when
start?
The season's going to start, Mike.
Well, they're still going to drop the schedule next month, so at least we get to see when.
Right. May 9th, I think, was the day they were going to drop the schedule. They still play twice. That's all.
As usual, you're wrong. It's May 10th, but that's okay. That's all right. Speaking of the NFL, I wanted to talk about because we got some quarterbacks here who have still not been signed, who don't have a home as of yet. Three big names, if you will: Joe Flacco, Cam Newton, and just as today, Andy Dalton is gone from the Cincinnati Bengals. So, Ruthie, let me ask you, Mike and I have talked about this, and we said that possibly Andy Dalton would be there to kind of be a mentor to Joe Burrows. Now Burrows is definitively going to be the number one guy. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm not going to say that I'm 100% surprised by the moves by the Bengals because Joe Burrow as their first-round draft pick was an excellent choice and an obvious choice for the Bengals. I didn't see Andy Dalton getting dropped like the way he was, but, with Ryan Finley behind Joe Burrow, I respect it. And for somebody who hasn't been playing to their full potential as, for these past couple seasons, I agree with them. Where is Andy going to land?
Yeah.
That's the question that I want to know.
I look at this and I look at the weapons that Andy Dalton has. And first and foremost, you've got a stud wide receiver in A.J. Green. You've got Joe Mixon. You've even got John Ross. Now, some of those guys have been prone to injury, but, the Cincinnati Bengals, albeit a few years ago, were right there along fighting with in the AFC North Division with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Bengals have always been pretty much a one-trick pony. You can be great in the regular season, but you can't get your butt out the first round. So, Mike, looking at this, Cincinnati now, like Ruthie said, you got Burrows, you got Finley. For the most part, you still have those weapons. What's your expectation with this team?
Well, they're obviously not tanking for Trevor. So, I don't, I wouldn't have got rid of Andy Dalton. I know he's been one of the names, and maybe that's what, of course, the Patriots are waiting for, because Newton and both Andy Dalton have kind of been linked maybe to like a veteran quarterback that Belichick would bring in. Look, you said it there. Andy Dalton, with Marvin Lewis, those teams went to the playoffs, 7 straight years, but never got out of the first round. There's a few games they should have won. You can even go back to the Steelers putting, I guess, that playoff curse on them when Carson Palmer accidentally got rolled up on and threw a 70-yard pass that was a touchdown to start the game, and that's the last time Cincinnati led. Pittsburgh won the Super Bowl that year. Again, Carson Palmer healthy. I don't see why the Bengals couldn't have, especially with what they had then. But fast forward to now, I don't know. If I wouldn't have released him. Like I told you earlier, I definitely wouldn't have released him. He's not a diva like Aaron Rodgers. I think he would have worked with Burrow, would have helped Burrow out of the quarterback room. Rookie or not, the Bengals are still probably going to finish last in that division.
You think so?
The Bengals have opened up a lot of cap space now, and that's re-signing Andy Dalton. Now they have $17 million that they could work with re-signing AJ Green and making long-term contract.
Yeah, but they already I know, and he's got the franchise tag anyway, Green. So, and he's coming back from injury too. And again, I love AJ Green, so he's helped with me quite a few fantasy leagues. So I'm all good with AJ Green, But no, I look at it as you keep him around. No matter who they bring in. If they're not bringing in Cam Newton, he wants to start. You look at it that way. Jameis Winston now has a job.
He does.
Joe Flacco, yeah, could you bring in? He knows the division, but does he really want to be the mentor to Joe Burrow? I know that's always been a knock on Flacco anyway. Like after he won the Super Bowl, got his contract
with Baltimore.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You won a Super Bowl with Baltimore, but after he got the money, it was just kind of like, oh, does he still have that drive? Again, it didn't work out in Denver. I didn't think that was the best fit for him anyway. But I just look at Cincinnati as, again, sure, they'll be improved, but they're sure as hell not going to be Baltimore.
Right.
I mean, Pittsburgh, look, 8-8 last year with me and you and Ruthie playing quarterback, basically. So, I mean, it's one of those things where Cleveland will be better. I mean, I like the way they drafted. The talent Cleveland has on defense, they should be challenging for a division title.
Okay.
Again, the whole coaching carousel, the whole different thing. But yeah, I mean, I see Cincinnati finishing last. Now, I don't see them, maybe only winning 3 games. I mean, they could probably pull out 4 or 5 in a division game. I mean, look, they'll upset somebody once,
Right.
just by rule of numbers. But I just don't think it's the best. Again, coming in for Joe Burrow, I'm not saying, look, they're around the building, they know, but I would have kept Andy Dalton there. It's not like the guy has ever, been out in the media. And his numbers, I mean, I know his best year, guys, was something like 20. Well, his best plus minus in touchdowns was like 25 touchdowns to 7 interceptions in that middle of the playoff run. I mean, the most he's thrown in one season is 33, but I think he had like 20 picks that year or something like that. But I mean, again, it's, you want to have a quarterback room that's there. And I mean, yeah, he's a lame duck. So in a way, I mean, I guess if you're a player, you got to respect the Bengals for saying, okay, well, the draft is over. Go see where you can get on. I mean, again, I could see him signing in New England. That might be more of a Belichick guy. I mean, Brian Hoyer's there, I know, but I mean, Dalton's got so much more, and again, it's starting. And like you said, Eric, it's a regular season, but it's still success. He's got more success than Hoyer.
And we're still, the jury's still out on Stidham, so we don't know.
Right.
But you both brought up Flacco, so I definitely want to talk to you guys about him. Yeah, Mike, Ruthie, you guys definitely hit the nail on the head. Once he got his money, he became Jay Cutler-esque, if you will, of the AFC. Jay Cutler got his money, and then all of a sudden turned into truly the walking piece of just apathy and laziness.
But the Ravens
Joe Flacco,
still won,
it appeared as though,
still won.
Huh?
But the Ravens still won.
Yes, the Ravens still won.
But they still won.
They did. But it just seemed like his heart really wasn't in it now that he got his money. So is this the end of Flacco? Or, he went from Baltimore to Denver, not the answer in Denver. Do you see another team possibly picking him up and using him as a backup because he has that experience?
I would have said
he goes to Jacksonville.
Really?
Yeah. I could see Flacco in a Jacksonville Jaguars jersey for sure.
Well, I could definitely see that too. But I would say to you, Eric, too, the other place, and had they not drafted Hurts, honestly, I think Philly would have been perfect with Doug Peterson or I mean, they signed Phillip Rivers, and then the Colts drafted Jacob Eason. So I could have seen him maybe behind Rivers. You got a Super Bowl winning quarterback with Frank Reich, if that room would have been right for him. I think Jacksonville is a good, but I mean, he wouldn't go in as a starter. I think, like I said, Minshew's a starter, but that being said, I could see him somewhere like Jacksonville. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. The Texans are a mess, and I don't know if Flacco would even want to go there, just because even though Deshaun Watson started, but a backup to Deshaun Watson. Because, I mean, if anything, it's going to be exact what Jameis Winston did, a 1-year deal.
Yeah. And
it's pretty much a tryout to see what happens. So if I'm Flacco, I mean, Jacksonville is definitely a spot. If you want to chase another ring, I mean, I don't know if Andy Reid would bring him in, because it's not, it's different than Nick Foles, but I don't see too many. I mean, and the crazy thing is, though, I could see, depending on when training camp gets started, guys, is literally the Cowboys bringing him in as a backup.
Let me ask you this before I go to Ruthie, Mike. What about your Arizona Cardinals? Could you see Flacco come in and backing up Murray and kind of just giving Murray that little bit of guidance he needs in his sophomore year?
If they hadn't, I mean, they could. God knows they could with how they drafted Murray anyway, but a new coach and Kingsbury wanted him and got him. I would if they hadn't extended Brett Hundley, who, I mean, in Green Bay didn't have, I know, the best of numbers, and that's one thing about Mike McCarthy, and not that. Well, the reason why I say Dallas, and so I'm glad you asked that question, is because Mike McCarthy handcuffed Hundley in the playbook. I mean, that was, again, I'm not in Green Bay, but from a lot of people I read that are, beat writers and reading between everybody's lines with the play calling, they constantly started saying that after the third week, Mike McCarthy didn't let Brett. Now, I'm not saying Brett Hundley's, Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning at the line. I'm just saying, when you handcuff a playbook, you already take a shot at your quarterback's confidence.
Gotcha.
So I think of a coach like McCarthy, or like I said, even Doug Marrone in Jacksonville, knowing what they had, they got a guy like Nick Foles, they trade him. But I mean, the Cardinals, if they didn't extend Hundley, maybe, but with Kingsbury, I mean, now feeling more comfortable, I just don't know if that would be the perfect fit, because he knows, I mean, again, if Flacco's okay with knowing he's not starting, I mean, that's the other issue we need to touch on too,
Right.
because Cam Newton's going to want to start. He's got that chip, and obviously he's good enough to start. Jameis Winston, okay, yeah, the positive numbers are phenomenal, but I mean, come on, 30 picks. Like,
30 picks.
I think the three of us could go through a season and not throw 30 picks. Like, I would dump it down all the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would just check down or run out of bounds. That'd be my thing.
Thank you. After my 15th interception, I'd be like,
I was just about to say that. That's crazy.
I'm just gonna check down. Yeah, I'm just gonna check
right
down.
there.
Well, great Cowboys fans think alike. Sorry,
Right.
No, but I mean, look, Flacco would add a lot of value. I mean, the experience he does. I mean, look, when he first got to Denver, that first half of the season wasn't bad. I mean, he was like wanting to prove a point, but again, I mean,
wasn't he 2-6 with the Broncos when he first started?
Yeah, but I mean, they ended up with some injuries. Their defense, but his numbers, I mean, weren't setting the world on fire, but it wasn't like he was chucking the ball all over.
He had 6 touchdowns. Yeah, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions with 1,800 yards in those 8 games that he played for the Broncos.
And then they benched him. But I mean,
when you're going 2-6 and you've got a rookie sitting on the bench, and
right, you might as well.
See where your money is.
Right.
But plus the injuries didn't help. I mean, their offensive line isn't as brutal as the Cardinals was. I'll say that. But I mean, those were pretty much the two most struggling offensive lines. And
yeah.
I mean, the Cardinals had injuries 2 years ago, and Josh Rosen, I think, and there's somebody that got the short end of the stick too. He's not part of this, but Josh Rosen. But yeah, Flacco, I mean, it's just going to have to be a fit. He's going to have to do okay with being a backup. I mean, you get to the difference, like you said, of Cam Newton and Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton still believes in the right side. I mean, again, in New England, could he do well? I mean, sure. I mean, he's a veteran quarterback. Belichick likes it. He doesn't have to do anything crazy. And, of course, he'll get ripped on if he copies Tom Brady and just dumps the ball off all the time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Belichick would take it.
I agree with you, Mike, but and I definitely, Ruthie, I want to get your take on this one, because here's my thing when it comes to Dalton. For all the years that he had Marvin Lewis, and I'm not even going to get started on how I feel, because anybody who knows me knows how I feel about Marvin Lewis. I've wanted him gone since 2011. How you go 16 seasons and you don't get one playoff win and you still have a job as a black man is beyond me.
Right.
He got some dirt on somebody, but that's another conversation.
To the playoffs.
That's another conversation for another time.
Okay.
Andy Dalton.
I met Andy Dalton, by the way.
You did?
I met him 3 years ago at the Boathouse when I was bartending there. I met him and his wife. Super nice guy.
Yeah. See,
but it was crazy that I had to tell a lot of people who he was, because nobody knew who he was. I'm like, you guys don't know who that red rifle is over there? Like, hello?
Yeah, he's got red hair. Like, how do you not know?
Yeah, he sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, anybody with red hair that happens to be famous, it's like one of those Acme sore thumbs. It's like as big as the building.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, and so speaking of that, when you look at his accomplishments and what he was able to do, in my opinion, in a broken system there in Cincinnati, him going to New England does kind of make sense, but I think it's the question of what is going to be the best fit for him. New England has no weapons. Who do they have? Julian Edelman?
Oh, come on.
I mean, they got N'Keal Harry, who we hope,
Bill
didn't
Belichick.
Play. Okay. That is the overall question is basically,
Dude, they had a top 3 defense. I know you're saying offense, but dude,
Andy Dalton doesn't
the
play
most
defense,
points
Mike.
Scored by defense all of last year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Andy Dalton doesn't play defense.
Yes.
Correct.
But the NFL doesn't have stiffs, but go on.
Stiffs
don't last.
But my point is throwing him into a system, and yes, you have the great Bill Belichick. You have an offensive genius in Josh McDaniel. So give him something to work with, and I think he could be successful. You're playing in a division right now where the Buffalo Bills, I think, are going to be, and I think they are right now, the AFC East favorite. You know, we truly know that Miami is rebuilding. The Jets just have to get out of their own way and figure out what the hell they're going to do with themselves.
Right.
And then you've got New England, who is basically, I won't say starting over, but it's like you're used to something for so long, and now you're going to get handed something else. It's like, oh, here, try this. And it's like, where are they going to fit into the mold? So, Ruthie, let me ask you, when you look at Andy Dalton, do you think he is going to be a fit and be the guy in New England? And if that is the case, if yes is your answer, then how far is he going to take them? Because we've seen history-wise, he's great in the regular season, can't get out the play, one and done in the playoffs.
Honestly, I respect everything that you got to say, Eric, but Bill Belichick having Andy Dalton, he's going to make it happen. He's going to work that team around him. He's going to give him the weapons that he needs, and he's going to make a playoff win with Andy Dalton if that were going to be the case.
All right.
I don't doubt it.
And we all agree Andy Dalton's an NFL caliber starter. And I
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
Third-time Pro Bowler.
Right. I get what you're saying about Marvin Lewis, but I don't think he should have been fired during that time. You're going to the playoffs. A. B, you better speak nice of the ASU co-defensive coordinator, which is Marvin Lewis, who I've got to talk to a few times. So, no, but I get what you're saying. If you're not winning Super Bowls, but come on.
It's not even winning Super Bowls, Mike. He couldn't win a playoff game.
Okay, I get that, but there was a few games where, yes, the offense didn't perform, but there was 3 or 4 games the offense was scoring, and then all of a sudden the defense gave up like 5 touchdowns, like they didn't know how to play defense anymore.
You're right.
And again, Marvin Lewis, the defensive guy. Okay, I can see what you're saying. But for Andy Dalton, again, if we agree he's a starting caliber quarterback, and like Ruthie's saying with Bill Belichick, I mean, Matt Castle won 11 games and went on to have a decent backup career and made some money. Now, again, when you say, you know me, I've been guilty of it, but I corrected myself. It took about a year on radio to stop saying somebody's got nobody around him in the NFL. Because, like I've said to you, the short of the analogy is, if we're 6'8" to 6'10", we could be stiffs in the NBA for 10 years because we could take up 10 minutes, score 7 to 8 points, get 10 rebounds a night, and guess what? We could have a mid-level career. We could make $40-50 million, and really, we sucked. But we were 6'10" and somewhat. I'll say maybe we didn't suck, but we were athletic. So if any of the 3 of us were 6'10" and could do that, you can be a stiff in the NBA. I get sick and tired of people saying, oh, he's got nobody. It's always an excuse, and not just for Tom Brady. I mean, I pick on him because it's the most, but Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look, people have the nerve to say once Reggie White started free agency, I mean, your boy started it, and literally, I mean, he was the driving force of it. But the 49ers with those teams, the Cowboys, as much as you despise them, you and I have talked about those 90s Cowboys, Eric, there was not an offensive lineman that was higher than a 3rd-round pick.
Right.
So, again, Belichick has missed on some draft picks. He doesn't miss on free agency, as much as I hate to say it, and he doesn't miss on just little nuances in coaching. So, Andy Dalton there, I still think the Bills win the division. I think with what McDermott's done, I mean, it's that defense, again, Rex Ryan left the cabinets very full for him.
He did.
And they tweaked it, and they got a big arm quarterback like Josh Allen, who you and I both – I don't know how Ruthie feels, but he's taking huge strides from the time he even stepped into –
I love Josh Allen.
Yeah, to
Absolutely.
OTAs.
From seeing him at the Combine to now, let me tell you, his progression has just been this. And he could not have found – I think the only 2 coaches who may have better suited him would have been Sean McVay of the Rams or Sean Payton of the New Orleans Saints. I think those 3 coaches – were the best fit for Josh Allen. Who?
Andy Reid.
Oh, well, of course, Andy, but I mean, I'm talking about these young, Sean Payton's not young, but I'm talking about these up and coming coaches and the coaches who are still,
Yeah.
So,
no, but, I mean,
let's go to Flacco really quick.
Right.
Do we think Flacco is going to be a starter this year?
No.
All right. I'm sorry. No. Where is he going to be a backup then? That is my question.
Well,
I want to move on to Cam.
I have a caveat to that.
Sure.
He could be a starter depending on injury and depending on team.
Well, of course. Barring health and injury, anything's possible.
Right.
What about Detroit?
Behind Stafford or starting over Stafford?
No, behind. Well, I think he could be a good backup. I just thought of that. I don't even know who the heck the backup is in Detroit.
I don't even know either.
Exactly, because nobody does, because it's Detroit. But that's okay. It's not our fault. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, Detroit fans. I'm just kidding. I got nothing but love for the Lions. I think Matthew Stafford's awesome. Calvin Johnson retired too early. But I think Detroit would be a kind of a cool spot for him. It'd be a good one-year tryout because, I mean, again, I think Stafford's a hell of a competitor. He needs to be pushed, but I'm kind of with Ruthie. I think maybe she kind of talked me into Jacksonville. I don't think I mean, again, to me, I think a few like Dalton might be the first domino, guys, because he might get signed early. But I think Newton and maybe even Flacco, we'll see what happens. Could be early in training camp. Somebody brings him in, or if because of injury, so it could be kind of middle of training camp. But I think if you're a smart team, I think Belichick's licking his chops though and maybe more so between Newton and Dalton, just because of Newton's obviously athletic ability, and Dalton obviously again what he's been able to do. But I don't see Flacco as going to the Patriots. So I'd have to kind of side with Ruthie. I got to think it's either Jacksonville in the South. I either think Jacksonville, possibly Houston, or Detroit would be my three.
And by the way, the backup is Jeff Driscoll.
Driscoll, thank you. Yeah, and he's terrible.
So, Ruthie, Cam Newton, Carolina, this man basically got tossed out on his backside. I mean, I have to agree with what some media people are saying, that he got screwed over because you could have got more for him or got something for him in return. And, now you have Christian McCaffrey, who was the highest paid running back in the league. Here's my question to you. So within the NFC South, there has been a lot of, let's just say, quarterback carousel, okay? Brady comes down to Tampa. Jameis goes to New Orleans. Teddy goes to Carolina. Cam, could you see Cam Newton sitting behind or maybe fighting Matt Ryan for the starting job of the Atlanta Falcons?
Oof, I didn't even think about Atlanta.
I'm just doing quarterback carousels here. That's
right. I mean, I had Cam signing with the Patriots. That's my favorite go-to for Cam. But Atlanta, yeah, heck yeah. I could see him going to Atlanta and making some noise.
I like that point, but I don't think Artie Moreno breaks that up. I think, again, you got to listen to your head coach. But I think Dan Quinn, again, I mean, he had to can his whole staff, and he did, and they brought in a new staff, offense, defense last year. So coaching-wise, I guess I could. I thought you were going to say Tampa in your neck of the woods because, I mean, would he want to sit behind Tom Brady? I mean, look, Brady has shown a knack of obviously his whole TB12 thing and staying healthy, and I'm not, could it be good for Cam? Could it be good for Cam Newton? Yeah. I'm not saying Atlanta would be bad, but, I mean, he's going to want to start, and people think he's a distraction. Look, the guy, when they made their run to the Super Bowl and they were winning games the year before, I mean, nobody complained about, this he's a bona fide MVP candidate. I mean, again, the accuracy, I know, has always been a thing that he's had to overcome. But, man, working with our great boy North Turner, I mean, you saw a little bit more accuracy out of Cam Newton when he was with him.
I can see Cam Newton going to Atlanta and starting over Matt Ryan.
No way. Why does everybody hate Matt Ryan?
28-3, Mike. That's all I'm going to say to you.
Okay, I just like him. Hey, whose fault is that? I got an information for you. Maybe Maybe the coach in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, who doesn't know how to run the ball. But now Kyle Shanahan knows how to run the ball
because he got Matt Breida.
Yeah, and Dan Quinn. I mean, Dan Quinn was sitting there as the head coach, and he was with Pete Carroll. All he had to say to Kyle Shanahan after the second drive in the third quarter, if you pass the ball one more time, I will fire you in this game, and I will call the rest of the plays. Like, you run the ball. Tom Brady threw a pick six. Your defensive line was beating him up, and he was rushing throws, not looking like, oh, nobody wants to talk about that. That's a conversation for another time. But I don't know. Everybody hates on Matt Ryan. Again, yes, he did have some plays in the second half. I agree. But they did not run the ball at all. Okay. And it wasn't being taken away from them, Eric. They could have done anything. Kyle Shanahan called a great game in the first half.
All right, so let's go back to Cam and the fact that so now we've got two choices. Well, actually, we've got three because we've said New England. I asked the possibility of Atlanta for the whole quarterback carousel. Ruthie brought up, Mike, you actually brought up Tampa. honestly, do you think Cam is ready to relinquish the cape, if you will, and be more of a backup or a mentor to somebody? I mean, we don't know physically how that shoulder is. We don't know what his mindset is. But the one thing we do know about Cam is when he's winning, it doesn't matter who's playing on his team, because I've always said this. You're not getting to the playoffs with Devin Funchess, but I have been proven wrong, and I've had to shut my mouth on this one. I really have. Now, I think Cam is – I would love to still him – I would love for him to still be a starter. I would.
Well,
I think it's time for him to maybe just take it back a notch. And that's just my opinion.
Right,
but Ruthie,
but
what are your thoughts on this?
Sorry.
With Cam,
Yeah.
I mean, take a back seat for Tom Brady if you want to. But, I mean, if you want to be a starter and you want to make it happen, then you got to sign with whatever team is going to take you.
But is there a need right now for – I mean, so all right, so then I'm going to ask the question. Which of the 32 teams do you think is going to take a chance on Cam Newton this year?
Well, but that goes to your question before, though. I mean, can he – look, if he wants to take a step back, and again, he just saw what Jameis Winston did. Jameis Winston signed a 1-year deal for, a few bucks and unlimited crab legs.
Right.
So that's good for him. But sorry, I couldn't resist, Eric. I couldn't resist. I know.
Oh my God.
But if he wants to take a 1-year deal and actually step back, take a breath, I mean, you have 2 NFL starting caliber quarterbacks of all time. If you want to say that Brady's the greatest of the generation, fine. But if he can sit back and actually be in the room, and plus be with a dude like Bruce Arians, who I know some people said, well, man, if Arians couldn't get Winston right. But again, he said he loved Jameis, but too many picks. That being said, if he can sit there, work with Brady, work with Arians, because, I mean, if again, there'll be some, Brady, wants to take every snap, but I guarantee you Bruce Arians is smart enough to know, too, that if they're blowing some team out at the beginning of the fourth quarter, again, garbage time, but at least he's getting reps in the system. Yeah. So, I mean, if he can step back and not feel that he wants to, again, is he good enough to start? We all three know absolutely yes, hands down. Probably more so, I mean, a little bit ahead of Dalton.
Yes.
And way above Flacco. So, I mean, I look at it as Tampa would be a great fit for him, but if he wants to start, I mean, who's on? I mean, you're not obviously. It's easy to rule teams out quick. I mean, basically like Tampa, anyone else in his division. I mean, it would be funny though, because to answer your question truly, Carolina would benefit the best from having him back.
Nah. To be second string to Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know Cam's not going to go back after what transpired and what happened.
I'm just saying, right? He's not.
Does it make sense? Yes, he knows the system. He was there, but he's not going to go back. Here's an interesting one for you, because I'm not sure how Ron Rivera – I still am not sold on this whole Ron Rivera, Dwayne Haskins thing.
Oh,
what about him going to Washington and playing with his former head coach, Ron Rivera? What about that?
Well, I mean, I know you're rooting for – I mean, I don't know why you'd be rooting for Washington to get anything, but –
I'm trying to be unbiased here, Mike.
I know.
I really am.
And in being unbiased, I mean, you're hating on Dwayne Haskins. Again, Jay Gruden didn't like him, didn't want him, and he was told he was going to pick him from everything that we've read and seen. But that being said, I'm kind of with, Alex on this one, giving him a full year. But, yeah, you bring Newton in and say – the first 3 games, Haskins looks terrible. They're 1-2. And Rivera says, you know what? I'm going to turn the reins over to you, Cam. And that's that. So, I mean, I definitely, unfortunately, could see that. Because, I mean, they do have some talent offensively that have speed on the outside.
Just a thought. Let's go to Jameis, because I definitely want to wrap this up. And thank you both, Michael Caratanudo and Ruth the Truth, for being on the show today. So let's talk about Jameis. Let's talk about the fact that Jameis has a home. Again, NFC South just seems to be shuffling quarterbacks around. But now, 1-year deal, $10 million, sits behind Drew Brees, and basically just gets to learn from a future Hall of Famer. Ruth, as someone who has covered the Bucks and someone who has great insight into this team, what are your
Wait,
thoughts
1
on?
second. Sorry, so sorry.
No, go right ahead. We'll come back to her. Mike, let me go to you. What are your thoughts on Jameis basically taking that role of being a backup quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wise of him because to me, and again, we always like to relate to fantasy football. I will say that every year I've had Drew Brees on one of my teams, I've always won in a league.
Right.
Every year I haven't had Drew Brees, I have not won in a league.
Right.
That being said, I just think it's smart of him. Like you said, he gets to work with Sean Payton. He's not going to be a starter if he's acting like he won't act a fool there because, I mean, Peter King did that thing a few seasons ago for Sunday Night Football where he actually on Saturday got to sit in the room with Peyton and Brees going over the game plan probably for like the millionth time they've gone over it for a team, but just plays. And like he said, there are times I wouldn't even look down. They'd look up at the film, they'd look up at the video, and Sean Payton would start to say something, he'd stop, and Brees would pretty much finish his sentence. So if Jameis can just kind of, like we said with Cam, step back and suck that in. I mean, again, not having been around Jameis, and I know all the jokes are there. Again, the talent we know is there. It would be it would help him because then, if they feel he's good, they can lock him up. Even if Brees wants to play, 2-3 more years after that,
right?
They could lock Jameis up. He's young enough. Sean Payton, again, you'll play in blowout games. You'll play, probably mostly the whole preseason. But you'll get your time. You'll play. We clinch playoffs and our seeding's not affected. You're starting. I want to see what you can do. And Sean Payton, as we know, I think would do that. But, I mean,
does Jameis benefit more from being behind Drew Brees or being coached by Sean Payton?
Well, I think that's one and the same. That's a great question, but I think that's one and the same.
You know what? I think I have to go with sitting behind Brees. He's
Right.
going to benefit more from sitting behind Brees. I take nothing away from Sean Payton's coaching because I feel like his coaching is outstanding. I mean, he's right up there with almost up there with Belichick as far as that genius level. But Jameis came into the Buccaneers and came into the NFL without really having a true mentor, if you will. And I think that's a lot of the issue that's been missing from a lot of these quarterbacks is you're asked to just come in and start day one, and you haven't even played on an NFL team.
Oh, yeah.
What your college tape and college highlights have shown is that you might be NFL ready, but until you're actually in the game and until you're actually doing it consistently and you build that repetition and that muscle memory and that strength and conditioning, you are not a product of the system. You were just fortunate enough to be given that opportunity. That's why I say him sitting behind Drew Brees and actually studying and learning. It's
Right.
not like he has to go out there and perform. It's not like he has to go out there and execute and be on point every single game like he had to do for the past 5 years here in Tampa. Jameis Winston can now take a step back, look over everything, and no pun intended, now has clear vision when watching how Drew Brees goes out there and performs. So I think he's going to benefit more from sitting behind and learning from Drew Brees.
How worse can it get?
Oh, no, go ahead.
30 interceptions, how worse can it get?
It can get a lot worse, trust me.
Well,
Ask
but
Nathan
here's the
Peterman
thing,
about
too.
that one.
I agree with you, Eric, but I mean, it's sitting behind Drew Brees, but it's also, like I said, that, I mean, granted, yes, Sean Payton is the play caller and the offensive coordinator, but even when he's the head coach, I mean, he'll see how Brees has obviously that respect, for a Sean Payton, but how they work together, how important it is to be, literally at the hip of your offensive coordinator from, I mean, even probably in the offseason a little bit, but from the beginning, day one of training camp till, the end of your season, whenever that is. So, I mean, again, yes, sitting behind Brees, a guy that's, again, people see him and, the guy could break every record and nobody, I mean, again, they'll say, oh, well, this and that. I mean, he takes his teams to the playoffs. Yes, there were some seasons where the Saints defensively, I mean, they scored 55 and gave up 56. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that being said, like, Jameis will benefit. I mean, they said Ridley's covered him more. I mean, if he does, but do you guys think that he has the personality
Right.
in and of to accept that learning and to
I feel
accept
he's evolved a lot in the past couple seasons. I don't really think he's going to be too much of a worry when it comes to how the people, see him in the public eye. I just think signing with, being behind Drew Brees, he needs to keep his nose down and just play football. When you're called upon, be ready. Learn as much as you can, absorb as much as you can. And when Drew Brees goes to retire and you're still, if they still have you locked in, then it's your time to shine.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically got a 1 year, because what you say too about Sean Payton, Eric, and I mean, guys like Belichick, guys like, even an Andy Reid who might, seem quieter in demeanor, but, you have a 1 year audition with allegedly probably maybe like the best offensive coach in the game.
Right.
Arguably. I mean, Andy Reid, yes, is a quarterback guy, but I mean, even as a play caller, I think Sean Payton has always been inventive and ahead of it. And again, even saw it younger. And I mean, again, it's not to bring it back to the Cowboys, but even saw it when he's under Parcells with the Cowboys. I mean,
no, clearly.
Parcells holds his guys tight, but I mean, Tony Romo really started to take bigger steps. Yes, there were the interceptions, maybe not the greatest times, but Sean Payton was pushing him to make those plays. Like, no, you can make the play.
Right.
But, like, you need to read the field, too. I mean, obviously it's a lot being a quarterback, but you could see it even early on in his career. And, again, being with somebody like Parcells and, but I think Payton understands defense, too. Like we talk about our guy Mike Zimmer in Minnesota coaching under Parcells. I mean, they're always bouncing stuff off each other. But it'll be good for him to get with Payton. It's a 1 year audition. And, again, if you fail with Sean Payton, I mean, I think, and he's not going to say anything bad. I mean, if Jameis does, anything dumb in the public eye, which I'm with Ruthie, I don't expect him to. He hasn't been that way since he left Florida State. He's seemingly and with what everything I've read since he signed. I mean, even guys in Tampa were saying as a locker room guy, like, you don't think he's fake. Like, he is a good locker room teammate. He's a good locker room guy. So he shouldn't have that issue. But, yeah, she's right. He's got to keep his eyes down and, keep his nose down and just go and work hard. But if you screw up with Sean Payton, again, it's like people say, if you screw up with Belichick, how many teams are going to take a flyer on you? But if you screw up with Sean Payton and you're a quarterback, like, teams are going to be like, well, I mean, we'll bring in as a backup, maybe.
Right. Go ahead, Ruthie.
Right. So Jameis Winston signed for $1.1 million, which makes him the 52nd highest paid quarterback in the league. The second string quarterbacks that are above him are CJ Beathard, Deshaun Kaiser, Chad Henne, Jeff Driscoll, Ryan Griffin, Chase Daniel, Nate Soldfield, Matt Barkley, still in the league, Nathan Patterman, still in the league, Cooper Rush, Colt McCoy, Matt
Cooper Rush. Who is Cooper?
Cowboys, baby.
Right? Case Keenum, AG, and Marcus Mariota. Those are all the second string quarterbacks that are getting paid more than Jameis Winston. So he's got a lot
some of those guys, Ruthie, have been starters, like you said. I mean, like Matt Barkley, you said still in the league, but like Chase Daniel, again, maybe not as successful, but their agents got their money. I mean, I'm just glad that, as much as I met him numerous times even before he was a Cardinal, but Sam Bradford's agent, like, I want to hire him as my agent.
I want Sam Brad. Yeah, I've always said that. I want Sam Bradford's agent.
So, I mean, look, he chose to come out a year early. I thought he should have waited, but he knew they were smart at Oklahoma, and he knew that the league was going to change because veterans were pissed off. These guys are coming in, getting money they don't even deserve. They haven't earned just because they're quarterbacks.
Right.
So that kind of went out. So he was smart. He got that big deal. He got another big deal from the Rams, and he gets traded to the Eagles. And then he goes to the Vikings, and the Cardinals sign him. I'm like, look, he was probably his only client, and if he was, like, his agent is sitting somewhere in in Tahiti or the Caribbean on this quarantine, because he probably owns a quarter of the island. I mean, it's insane. But those guys have been starters. But yeah, I mean, you know what? It's humbling for Jameis Winston because, Ruthie, the one thing that I saw yesterday too is the $1.1 million, but he was making $20.5 million last year.
Right.
So, I mean, if that's not really, again, as an athlete, a punch to the gut of like, okay, they see me, they know I have this talent. Maybe he does need to take it more serious. I think with Bruce Arians he was, because Bruce Arians, as you know, Ruthie, in press conference, and Eric, you too, he ain't going to hold back.
No,
Yeah.
If a
not at all.
question's asked, he'll answer it. He won't go after anybody, but he will answer the question. And if you're asking, ridiculous questions, he'll probably let you know. But I love Bruce Arians when he was here. But I mean, if Bruce Arians, a quarterback whisperer, has had success with a lot of guys. I mean, Jameis Winston again, whether it was in the film room and Sean Payton says, hey, let me take a flyer, see what we can do here because it could help us. Plus, it also, come on, you got to know 1 year with Bruce Arians, even though they're going to shift things up to what Tom Brady likes, but 1 year with Bruce Arians, it's going to help to have Jameis around 2 games a season.
Yeah.
Right.
So here's something.
One more thing, not a punch to the gut for Jameis Winston, but Jameis Winston has completed more passes to the Saints defense than Tyson Hill has ever passed the Saints offense.
Wow.
I saw that yesterday too. It was so funny.
Let me leave you guys with this because we were talking about Sean Payton, and I think we have to recognize the quarterbacks that he has worked with and the success that they've had. You talked about Tony Romo. He worked with Drew Brees not only when he was in San Diego, now Los Angeles, but now New Orleans. Can you imagine, like Ruthie said, if he sticks around, keeps his nose clean, just learns, and then is able to elevate his game because of what Sean Payton did? I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Thank you both for joining me. I really appreciate it. Baby Ruth the Truth. Make sure you check her out. NBC Sports Radio. Michael Caratanudo out there in Arizona, and your man Eric Wilson Sports Arena. Hey, # turning dreams into reality. Talk to you guys next week. Have a great day. See ya.
Bye, guys.